want to share with you that God is using me as an example for all of us and to teach all of us. I want to say that I'm a happy guinea pig. God is using me as to experiment in a profound way. You read in Surah 41 that those who believe in God and lead a righteous life, the angels descend on them saying, what? Douglas, what do the angels say to the believer?
Peace.
Have no fear and no grief. This is your favorite step. You also say peace. Yes, that's another surah. No fear and no grief. لا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا in Arabic. Have no fear and no grief. And we had a profound example in the last 2 weeks. You remember what I talked about last time when I was here? Anybody remembers? Yes, about the righteous do not die. Dr. Sabahi remembers, I'm sure all of you remember. The khutbah was a revelation. It started with a question from Lisa as to what happens to the righteous. And as you know in the Quran, God repeats, يَسْأَلُونَكَ, they ask you, قُلْ, say. They ask you, say. When a question is posed, God sends the revelation through Gabriel to tell us what the answer is. Or if we are speculating, then God will send Gabriel with the assurance as to what is the correct answer to the question. So I shared with you last time that the righteous do not die. They go straight to heaven. And I wrote it down in the perspective and I mailed it to everybody. So even yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday, this Saudi guy called from Chicago?
Before yesterday.
The day before yesterday, he called and talked with me for an hour. And sarcastically, he said, okay, what was Gabriel's latest revelation? He was ridiculing and mocking. I told him the last revelation Gabriel came was that the righteous do not die, they go straight to heaven. And after I finished talking with him, this was quite a reminder. Then I called Egypt, and I found out that my mother went to heaven on Monday, which is the day that Suad made that discovery. And she considered to be the happiest day of her life. It's an assurance from God. He sent the angel. He says, have no fear, have no grief. And then you know that your mother made it to heaven. She didn't die. She simply, also, the information that I got are very assuring. Okay, she tells the servant, go make me a cup of tea. The servant comes back in 2 minutes and she's gone. So she's in a good mood. You usually ask for a cup of tea when you're perfectly happy, you're going to sip the tea, watch the TV or something. And if you remember what I told you in the last khutbah, I said the angel comes and invites the righteous person to go to heaven. And he says, yeah, really? There you go. He probably told her, you're going to wait for the cup of tea. She said, what? Are you kidding? So there were many strange signs that happened to assure me. Okay. In order to do the funeral prayer, they went to the mosque. And in that mosque, there were only 2 believers that we know. And one of them at least will be here for the conference in September. His name is Mustafa Sarban. They already pushed a known kafir to lead the prayer, known disbeliever, whom I know also, an idol worshipper. And then Mustafa opened the Quran when he went in, and the verse that came out was, God cites the example of Pharaoh's wife. God cites the example of the believers. Pharaoh's wife, she prayed to God, please build a mansion for me in paradise with you and save me from the wicked people. So that was the verse he read. This is the first sign. And then Mustafa said, I don't know why all of a sudden they pulled the other guy and they pushed me in to lead the prayer. So Mustafa, a believer, went in to lead the prayer. We're going to have a prayer immediately after the Friday prayer. We'll have a prayer for her. So a believer was chosen to lead the prayer, and he said, now this embarrasses me a little bit, but I have to say it, I'm sharing it with you. But he said the intention that came out, I didn't want to say it, I had no intention of saying it, but this is how it came out. And he said, نويت أصلي على روح عبدك ورسولك رشاد خليفة. This is what came out of his mouth. He says, I intend to pray for the soul of the mother of your servant and your messenger Rashad Khalifa. And this Mustafa is a believer anyway. But he said he had no intention at all of saying this. Okay, so they go for the burial, and they made dhikr around after the burial. And both the two believers, Mustafa and Sharif, they told me on the phone, we were amazed at the number of La ilaha illallah that we said around it. They were just saying La ilaha illallah for about an hour, and nothing else, just La ilaha illallah. So what I'm saying is that God is teaching us through one of us. Because that, of course, the unbelievers will say, oh, he wrote this because his mother died, or whatever they're going to say. But we know that I said it last Friday, two weeks ago, and I printed it, and I made it, and after this, we hear the news. So the angels, literally, the angels come down to you and tell you, have no grief and have no fear. I think I have to mention my father here, who was, I tried with him very hard to believe, but he refused to believe. The family had decided to bury my mother with my father. He decided, and she decided, everyone decided. But my father is an idol now himself by his followers. And I know for a fact, that's something else, that he died as a disbeliever. And I was taken from here, literally, carried from here, there, just before he died, to give him the last warning, even though I didn't intend to. I had no intention of talking to him about religion, but he insisted. And God let me know that he died as a disbeliever. God also let me know that my mother died as a believer. I think I failed to mention this, but all her life, since I was 2 years old, I heard her say to my father, those saints are helpless, they're powerless, they're dead. Only God can help you. God alone. She was saying God alone all her life. So I know for a fact that she's a believer. And this all fits the total picture. So when they went to bury her according to the family's wishes, his followers, or idol worshippers, who want to build a mausoleum around him and worship him, they didn't want anybody else with him. They thought that she will pollute the grave or something. So God saved her from that situation, and she's buried with her mother, whom I know also to be a believer. It's just all the things that happened are just fantastic. Now here is the trick. When my father died, I was sad, because he died as a disbeliever. And he's a man I loved very much. When he died, I was sad. When my mother died, I'm happy. I was happy. Because of what God sent down, that the righteous do not die. They go on to paradise. So immediately after the Friday prayer, we will pray the 2 rak'ahs of the funeral. You know how to do it now, because of Maryam Atimedy's circumstances.
In the killing of a Tucson Muslim leader, the body of Rashad Khalifa was found this morning. Jim Ritchie has details of the killing, which may have been for religious reasons.
It may have been religious beliefs that led to the murder of the head of the Islamic Masjid Tucson, a downtown area Muslim mosque.
All Muslim countries, they hate him. Saudi Arabia's religious leader, Ibn al-Baz, claimed that he should be killed.
Mosque members say 55-year-old Rashad Khalifa had come up with a new way to interpret the Quran, a Muslim book of sacred writings. Khalifa's version was based on computer research and numerology, which placed a special importance on the number 19. Khalifa also claimed that 2 satanic verses had been added to the Quran after Muhammad, the founder of the Islamic religion, had finished the writings, teachings which among Muslims amount to heresy.
In Turkey also, I'm coming from Turkey. In Turkey, all religious people, so-called Muslim people, they hate him because he shows they don't follow God's word.
And police have not ruled out the possibility Khalifa was the victim of a religious murder.
That'll be part of the investigation, obviously. We've heard some of the same things you've heard.
Investigators found Khalifa's body inside the mosque's kitchen area after reports of gunshots early this morning. Police say he died violently, but they say the cause of death will not be released until after an autopsy is completed. Jim Ritchie, TV4 Eyewitness News.
Say a Muslim leader may have been the victim of a religious murder. Investigators found the body of Rashad Khalifa this morning inside a downtown area Muslim mosque. Khalifa was a head of the Islamic Masjid Tucson. Mosque members say Khalifa was hated by Muslim people in Turkey and may have been killed because of his interpretation of the Quran, a sacred book of writings. Police say Khalifa died violently. There were reports of gunshots, but the cause of death has not been released.
Rashad Khalifa. He was found murdered yesterday in his Tucson mosque. There may have been a political or religious motive for the crime. As Margarita Zavala reports, local law enforcement officers are tapping other agencies.
A day after their spiritual leader was found murdered in the mosque he founded, the 50 local followers of Imam Rashad Khalifa say they are ready to get back to God's work.
The message will continue to be spread around the world according to God's will. The Quran says, "Do not think that those who are killed in the cause of God are dead. They are alive at their Lord and being provided for."
Khalifa is said to have had enemies in the Nation of Islam because of his anti-traditional interpretation of the Quran. Although they are looking at all possible motives, Tucson police officers are leaning toward a religious reason for the murder. For that reason, the FBI has been called in to help. And because of the possible international religious and political implications, TPD will also tap other sources.
One of the possible resources that we'll use in this investigation would be the State Department, because we're not experts on this religion or all the ramifications and different implications within the religion and of different beliefs and how they affect other people. And my understanding is the State Department would be a good resource for that because they have people who are well educated in that.
Dakin says officers will concentrate on several threats received by Khalifa before his death. Margarita Zavala, 9 News.
Tucson police in the investigation of the murder of a local Muslim leader. 54-year-old Rashad Khalifa was found lying on the floor of his Tucson mosque yesterday. Khalifa had been a controversial religious figure for years and had received numerous death threats. FBI agent Jim Ahern says religious conflict could be the motive behind the killing.
It is apparent that some of the teachings that the gentleman was espousing were not popular in some religious circles. Therefore, one of the possible motives could be that he was killed because of these religious beliefs.
The official cause of death of Khalifa has not yet been released, although police say it appears he had been stabbed. At 6 o'clock, we'll hear from some of Khalifa's followers and find out how they are overcoming the tragedy.
On the case involving the murder of a prominent Muslim leader here in Tucson, 54-year-old Rashad Khalifa was found dead at his mosque yesterday. As Celeste Gonzalez reports, Khalifa's followers are now trying to cope with his death.
FBI agents say Rashad Khalifa, leader of the Masjid Tucson, had received death threats for the past 5 years, and his death could be evidence those threats should not have been taken lightly.
In this case, it appears that the threats may have been very serious, particularly when you get into religion, where feelings run deeper and stronger than they do in most other type of activities.
Khalifa had been known across the globe for his controversial religious beliefs. He translated the Quran into English and claimed people should worship God alone. That conviction may be the link to his violent death.
The idea that Dr. Khalifa advocated that we worship God alone and only use the source, which is the Quran, as the only source, and nothing besides it, in the Middle Eastern countries, is not well received at all.
There has been many threats to him in the past, but of course you never expect this sort of thing happening.
The religious leader, originally from Egypt, had hundreds of followers all over the world. Mosque members say they don't know who will replace him.
These are all things that, as a group, we have to discuss and work out, and at this time we can't answer that question.
No person or religious group is claiming responsibility for Khalifa's murder, and authorities say they are probing all possible leads. Khalifa's death has been devastating to some mosque members, but they say they're trying to move ahead and put the tragedy behind them. Celeste Gonzalez, KOLD, News Center 13.
So far, authorities haven't released the official cause of Khalifa's death. They say they're still waiting for an autopsy report, but police do say it appears he was stabbed.
Far away as Canada to mourn his death today, members of the mosque are now trying to put the pieces of their congregation back together.
Of course, it's been a major shock. We all love Dr. Khalifa, and we will miss him. But we are very happy for him because he is in a place that is better than anywhere. He's with God.
But Khalifa's violent death wasn't a total shock to everyone. According to FBI agents, the leader had apparently been receiving death threats for the past 5 years.
It appears that the threats may have been very serious, particularly when you get into religion, where feelings run deeper and stronger than they do in most other type of activities.
The conflict surrounds this book, the Quran, the Muslim Bible, which Khalifa translated into English. In the process, he deleted 2 verses he labeled satanic. The controversial leader also said Muslims should worship God alone. Police say those beliefs may have been related to his killing.
But it is apparent that some of the teachings that the gentleman was espousing were not popular in some religious circles. Therefore, one of the possible motives could be that he was killed because of these religious beliefs.
It isn't known exactly how Khalifa was murdered, but police say it appears he had been stabbed. Authorities say the autopsy report will determine the official cause of death and possibly reveal clues linking them to the killer. Celeste Gonzalez, KOLD, News Center 13.
Mourners for a slain controversial Islamic leader paid their last respects today. Family and friends of Imam Rashad Khalifa attended a private prayer service at the mosque where his body was found on Wednesday. Police believe the 54-year-old Muslim leader was murdered because of his religious beliefs, but so far there are no suspects in the case. Autopsy results released today reveal Khalifa was stabbed to death.
The autopsy results were returned to us and show that the victim died of multiple stab wounds.
The FBI has joined the homicide investigation.
Khalifa was an internationally renowned scholar of the Quran and a controversial leader in the Muslim world. Sal Quijada has more.
The FBI has joined Tucson police in trying to find those responsible for the brutal stabbing death of Dr. Rashad Khalifa. Police will not discuss details of alleged threats Dr. Khalifa received several days before the killing. And U.S. State Department officials may soon join the investigation, which may now include other Muslim countries.
Because of what may be some far-reaching implications in this, because of the religious aspect and the possibility that he was killed because of his religious beliefs and preachings.
Anybody who kills who kills a believer on purpose is destined to hell. And that's what will happen with these people.
The followers of the mosque, which Dr. Khalifa founded, say his teachings called for equality of all people and religions, both men and women. Khalifa's views clash with more conservative Muslims of the Middle East. Khalifa advocated worship of only God and warned against false idols or even lesser prophets such as Muhammad. Khalifa used a computer to mathematically prove the Quran was divine scripture.
Well, he discovered in the process that there were 2 false verses injected in the Quran, and it's mathematically proven that they did not belong to Quran, and that was also one of the controversies.
Members of Dr. Khalifa's mosque say they believe he continues to live in heaven and mourn not for him tonight, but for themselves. Sal Quijada, TV4, Eyewitness News.
Khalifa was once a science advisor to Libyan strongman Muammar Gaddafi. Investigators say an autopsy report will provide them details of the...
Today says that Muslim leader killed in Tucson this week was stabbed to death. The body of Rashad Khalifa was found Wednesday. Tucson police have asked the FBI and the Department of Public Safety for assistance. A police official says they're investigating whether he may have been murdered for political reasons because of his religious beliefs. A funeral prayer was said at the mosque today. Funeral services are pending.
The father,
his mother and his 11 brothers bowing before him, something that was to happen after he